A wife, caught in the throes of betrayal, declared, "I don't owe you anything." The following morning, she awoke to the stark silence of an empty home. Retribution. You may have never set foot in this place, yet the evidence suggests otherwise. The necklace was an unwelcome presence. Jonathan Hayes drew his headlamp nearer to the conduit wall, situated 40 feet beneath the bustling streets of downtown Cedarvale. 3 hours had passed since the city's emergency grid succumbed to failure, plunging half of the financial district into darkness. As the crowd lingered, grumbling over their lifeless devices, Jonathan Hayes ventured into the depths of the tunnels that sustained the very fabric of civilization. For 12 years, he had dedicated himself to the intricate task of mapping underground electrical systems. He was intimately familiar with every wire, every junction box, and every neglected maintenance shaft. As the beam of his flashlight illuminated a glint of silver trapped behind a relay switch that had remained untouched since 1987, Jonathan Hayes found himself frozen, breath caught in his throat, a fragile chain necklace entwined with a crumpled envelope, reminiscent of the jewelry his wife Nicole Hayes adorned during her elegant placemaking conferences. The envelope displayed a Milan airline logo, with her name inscribed in bold block letters. From the street below, Jonathan Hayes heard his work partner Brian Cooper's voice calling out, "What's the status?" "Just 5 more minutes," Jonathan Hayes responded, slipping the necklace and envelope into his pocket. His voice remained unwavering, even as his pulse thudded insistently against his throat. The ticket stub nestled within revealed a departure date from 3 weeks prior. Coinciding with the very weekend, Nicole Hayes asserted she had been visiting her sister in Portland. It was the very weekend she arrived back home, marked by an enigmatic rash adorning her neck and an unsettling new routine of perusing her phone while in the bathroom. In a mere 4 minutes, Jonathan Hayes revitalized the grid, breathing life back into its veins. Throughout his entire existence, he had dedicated himself to mending the troubles of others. It was time for him to address his own matters. 2 days later, Nicole Hayes stood in the kitchen, steam curling from her organic coffee, her eyes scanning through emails with the unwavering concentration of someone handling significant matters. She donned a cream blazer, a piece that surpassed the entirety of Jonathan Hayes' monthly earnings. Her dark hair was swept into an effortlessly chic bun, a style that belied the 20 minutes of meticulous effort it had taken to achieve. "The Morrison Project has been approved," she stated, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "Once more, I find myself tethered to the office late into the evening," Jonathan Hayes acknowledged, as he meticulously spread peanut butter across a slice of toast. "Which one is Morrison?" "I shared with you the details of the waterfront revitalization." Her tone held that unmistakable sharpness of impatience, hinting that Jonathan Hayes was neglecting the significance of her crucial tasks. Indeed, Jonathan Hayes had come to understand the wisdom of refraining from probing further into Nicole Hayes' endeavors. She had articulated that urban planning was intricate, that he might not grasp the subtleties of community development and the preservation of history. It would be wise for him to remain focused on his tasks, mending the lights and maintaining a low profile. His phone vibrated, A message from Brian Cooper, lighting up the screen. A further blackout is set to occur in Maple District this evening. Additional hours, should you desire them. I may also be working late, Jonathan Hayes remarked. Nicole Hayes lifted her gaze, taken aback. Truly, what is the nature of the work? Regular upkeep, devoid of any allure. Her smile broke through. The first authentic glimpse of emotion had witnessed from her in weeks. That's great news. We could certainly benefit from the additional income. Jonathan Hayes observed her as she collected her belongings, pressed a distracted kiss to his cheek, and made her way toward the door. The familiar ritual they had engaged in for 8 years of wedded bliss. Yet now he was aware of Milan. At that moment, he was aware of the deception. Once her car vanished from sight along Cedar Avenue, Jonathan Hayes carefully extracted the necklace from his toolbox. The pendant, a delicate silver compass, bore engravings of coordinates that were unfamiliar to him. He had never witnessed Nicole Hayes donning it, suggesting that she had misplaced it in a place she ought not to have ventured. The shrill sound of his phone pierced the silence. The name David Lawson illuminated the screen. Jonathan Hayes. My friend, how is life in the underground kingdom unfolding for you? David Lawson had been Jonathan Hayes' closest companion since their college days, a time when they both held the fervent belief that they could alter the course of the world. David Lawson had indeed made an effort, ascending from the role of campaign volunteer to that of deputy communications director for the mayor's office. He possessed a natural charisma that effortlessly unlocked doors and encouraged candid conversations. His presence was the sort that drew others in, creating an undeniable allure that made companionship irresistible. Another day, another journey through the same tunnels. Jonathan Hayes remarked, "Hello there. I am currently in the process of crafting a proposal for the Morrison waterfront project. Are you familiar with the electrical infrastructure in that area?" Jonathan Hayes' fingers curled around the phone with increasing intensity. Morrison. Isn't that Nicole Hayes' project? Indeed. We are working together on it. The intricate interplay of urban design and the realities of political viability, that entire choreography. I would appreciate your technical expertise, perhaps guiding me through the utility access points. At what time do you require this? At the earliest opportunity. I have a meeting with the planning committee on Thursday, and I want to ensure that we are not committing to something beyond our capabilities. I shall explore the possibilities at my disposal. Jonathan Hayes, you truly are exceptional. Kindly convey my gratitude to Nicole Hayes for her invaluable assistance. She has dedicated countless hours to this endeavor. The connection was abruptly severed. Jonathan Hayes gazed intently at his phone, fragments of a puzzle aligning seamlessly in his mind. Nicole Hayes toiling away into the late hours. David Lawson is in search of technical information. They were both engaged in the same project. The very project that demanded countless evenings spent in meetings and weekends devoted to consultations. Jonathan Hayes lifted the lid of his laptop, revealing the glow of the screen as he accessed the city's utility database. The Morrison Waterfront Project. Granted a fortnight prior. Lead advisor. Nicole Hayes, Cedarvale Placemaking Solutions, Political Connection, David Lawson, The Office of the Mayor. The project timeline revealed a series of planning meetings held every Tuesday and Thursday evening over the course of the last 2 months. Those very nights when Nicole Hayes asserted she was toiling away in solitude at her office. That very night, she returned with the scent of a luxurious cologne that was certainly not Jonathan Hayes. He sought evidence, not mere suspicions, nor coincidences, but tangible proof of the clandestine activities his wife and best friend engaged in while he remained oblivious. Jonathan Hayes lifted the lid of his toolbox, revealing a small device that resembled a hearing aid battery. The audio transmitter, originally crafted for the meticulous task of monitoring electrical equipment in perilous environments, proved equally adept for various forms of surveillance. As the night unfolded, Nicole Hayes indulged in a warm shower, unaware that Jonathan Hayes was meticulously tucking the transmitter into the pocket of her cherished vintage leather purse. The bag accompanied her faithfully, a lovingly restored artifact from the 1960s that she had discovered at an estate sale, cradling it close like a cherished security blanket. He conducted a test of the signal on his phone, audio that is crystal clear, extending up to 200 feet, ample range for any meetings she might truly be part of. The following evening, Jonathan Hayes found himself parked in his truck outside the Morrison construction site, intently observing the signal strength on his phone. Nicole Hayes' purse lay hidden within the confines of the half-finished building, accompanied by the remnants of the conversation she was sharing with David Lawson. The sound emerged with an astonishing sharpness. "I can no longer continue down this path. Jonathan Hayes' suspicions are beginning to stir." Nicole Hayes' voice trembled, laden with tension and urgency. "What type of suspicious activity are we discussing?" David Lawson's reply carried a serene quality, tinged with a hint of amusement. He inquired about the Morrison project. He never inquires about my endeavors. Thus, we exercise caution. We have journeyed to this point. 3 months. David Lawson. 3 months spent weaving a web of deceit. And for what purpose? Is it possible for you to secure the mayor's endorsement for your campaign? Is it possible for you to secure the largest urban development contract in the county? Do not feign that this solely revolves around my experience. A lengthy silence lingered. Jonathan Hayes caught the sound of footsteps, accompanied by the soft rustle of fabric. "I despise deceiving him," Nicole Hayes murmured, her voice now tinged with a gentle softness. "He is a commendable individual. This is not what he deserves." Virtuous souls often find themselves trailing behind. Nicole Hayes, you stated it yourself. You expressed your weariness of being wed to someone who found contentment in illuminating others' paths while his own remained shrouded in shadows. Jonathan Hayes' grip on the steering wheel grew more intense. Those were the words of his wife. Her voice painted a vivid picture of their union as she spoke to another man. "I am fully aware of my previous words. Yet, as I watch him prepare breakfast each morning, as he inquires about my day with a semblance of genuine interest, it becomes clear that he is invested in the routine, not in me. When was the last occasion he caught you off guard? When was the last moment he made you feel truly valued? As if you were worth the struggle. Increased quietude. Then, there were sounds that Jonathan Hayes was reluctant to interpret. We must approach this with greater intelligence, David Lawson remarked, after a moment of contemplation. Next week, the project approval will be granted. Following that, we can contemplate the long-term scenario. What enduring circumstance? Surely, you understand my point. It's unlikely that you can remain in this marriage indefinitely. Leaving Jonathan Hayes is simply not an option for me. The home, the nest egg, all that we've created together, we will navigate through it. Have faith in me. The sound faded away as they ventured beyond the reach of the transmitter. Jonathan Hayes sat in his truck, gazing at the half-finished structure that symbolized the decay of his marriage. Nicole Hayes was entangled in something far more complex than a mere affair. She was contemplating her departure, envisioning the moment she would gather all they had created together and entrust it to the man who had stood by his side for a decade and a half. With a rumble of the engine, Jonathan Hayes ignited the truck and set off towards home. When Nicole Hayes finally came back, he lay in bed, feigning slumber. She eased herself next to him, taking care not to disturb his slumber, while Jonathan Hayes remained still, attuned to the rhythm of her breath, pondering the depths of her scheming against him. 3 days later, as Jonathan Hayes enjoyed his lunch break, a call from his sister Hannah Collins interrupted the quiet moment. She toiled as a paralegal at one of Cedarvale's most relentless law firms, a bastion of expertise in tumultuous divorces and corporate wrongdoing. "I have a question for you," she stated, diving straight in. "Has Nicole Hayes been undertaking any significant financial ventures recently? Are you interested in real estate, investments, or similar topics?" Jonathan Hayes found himself on the verge of choking on his sandwich. What is the reason behind this? Her name surfaced during a property search I was conducting for a client. She holds the title of co-owner for a downtown condo, a costly location, acquired half a year prior, that is beyond the realm of possibility. We possess no other property. The location is 1247 Harborview, Unit 4, 112. Shall I delve further? Jonathan Hayes' hands trembled as he inscribed the address. What is the extent of your digging capabilities? Thorough enough to uncover the identities of others listed on the deed, the methods of financing involved, and any additional assets that may be connected to it. However, Jonathan Hayes, if I am to proceed with this, I must understand the reasoning behind it. I suspect my wife is contemplating leaving me, and I have a feeling she's been shifting funds to ensure I receive none of it. Hannah Collins remained silent for an extended pause. Join me at Morrison's bar this evening at 7. And what of Jonathan Hayes? Keep our meeting under wraps, even from Nicole Hayes. Throughout the remainder of his shift, Jonathan Hayes' thoughts lingered on the condo. Harborview stood as the priciest locale in Cedarvale, a realm where the price of a one-bedroom surpassed the yearly earnings of the average individual. If Nicole Hayes had acquired property there, she would have utilized funds that Jonathan Hayes was unaware of, funds that ought to have belonged to them both. That evening, he confided in Nicole Hayes that he would be staying late at the office. She scarcely lifted her gaze from the glow of her laptop, murmuring a few words about the Morrison project, bestowing a distracted kiss on his cheek as a token of her affection. Morrison's bar exuded a shadowy charm, its wood-paneled walls whispering secrets of the lawyers and politicians who frequented its intimate confines. Hannah Collins sat poised, cradling a glass of wine as she perused the contents of a hefty folder. "Take a seat," she instructed. "It's time for a conversation." Jonathan Hayes gracefully settled into the booth opposite her. His sister, though 3 years his junior, bore an appearance that suggested otherwise. Her blonde hair, interspersed with premature gray, told tales of countless years spent navigating the chaos of others' lives. She had never been fond of Nicole Hayes, often remarking that there was something cunning in the way her smile curved. "The condo belongs to LEB Holdings," Hannah Collins remarked, as she opened the folder. "A limited liability company, duly registered in the state of Delaware. Nicole Hayes E. Greaves and David Lawson R. Brixton serve as the managing partners." Jonathan Hayes sensed the color ebb from his cheeks. "David Lawson. Your companion, David Lawson. Is that correct? The purchase was made for $400,000, with financing routed through a shell company linked to Morrison Development Funds. Your spouse has been leveraging her role as a project consultant to manipulate funds, with your closest companion aiding her in this endeavor. That constitutes fraud. That represents merely the surface of a much larger reality." Hannah Collins retrieved additional documents from her stack. "I conducted a comprehensive asset search on both individuals. Have you heard that your retirement account was moved to a joint investment fund last month? Is there one that Nicole Hayes has exclusive access to?" Jonathan Hayes gazed intently at the scattered papers before him. Though his signature adorned the transfer documents, he found himself devoid of any recollection of having signed them. What could possibly make that happen? Authority granted to act on someone else's behalf. "Do you recall signing it 3 years back, during that time of your appendectomy?" It was a standard procedure, ensuring she had the authority to make medical decisions should anything go awry. Yet, she never did cancel it, and has been wielding it to make financial choices on your behalf. What is the cost? Is it really $83,000? The sum of your entire retirement, along with the equity loan she secured against your home. Jonathan Hayes' vision became a haze. "Is this our home?" 6 months prior, she took out a loan against it. Failure to meet payment obligations may result in the bank initiating foreclosure proceedings. And considering she doesn't intend to remain married to you for much longer, can you guess who will bear the weight of that debt? Jonathan Hayes rose suddenly, the sound of his chair dragging across the floor, breaking the silence. Though several other patrons cast their glances in his direction, he remained unfazed. "I require a breath of fresh air." The evening air was warm and humid, enveloping everything in a sticky, uncomfortable embrace. Jonathan Hayes rested against the weathered brick wall of the bar, grappling with the weight of Hannah Collins' revelations. His wife and closest companion had not merely turned against him. They had been methodically plundering his resources, exploiting his trust and his signature to seize all that he had toiled to achieve. Hannah Collins stepped out after him. "Jonathan Hayes, I understand this may be overwhelming. So much to absorb." Jonathan Hayes chuckled, yet the sound held no trace of amusement. "My wife has been unfaithful with my closest friend, pilfering my finances, and scheming to leave me destitute. Indeed, that is quite a substantial amount to absorb. This can be resolved. I sought this secluded meeting with you, far from the prying eyes of anyone familiar with Nicole Hayes or David Lawson. With a strategic approach, we can reclaim your funds and ensure they face the consequences of their actions." Jonathan Hayes gazed intently at his sister, truly observing her. Hannah Collins had perpetually embodied the spirit of a warrior within their family, the one who confronted bullies head-on and steadfastly embraced every challenge that came her way. She had crafted a career around aiding betrayed partners in seeking retribution against unfaithful lovers, and she excelled in her profession. What thoughts are swirling in your mind? Initially, we meticulously record every detail. Each transaction, each meeting, every deceit they've woven. Next, we initiate the process for emergency asset protection and commence divorce proceedings. As they rush to justify their financial discrepancies, we strike with fraud allegations and a civil lawsuit. Will it be effective? It will come together. Yet Jonathan Hayes, once we embark on this journey, there is no turning back. Nicole Hayes will despise you. David Lawson will forever remain silent towards you, and the entire town of Cedarvale will be aware of the events that transpired. Are you ready for that? Jonathan Hayes reflected on the audio recording from the construction site, recalling Nicole Hayes' voice as she articulated her weariness with their marriage. He reflected on a decade and a half of camaraderie with David Lawson, a span marked by unwavering trust and loyalty. Now tarnished by betrayal and theft, they have already made their choice. He remarked, "It is time for me to create my own." 1 week later, Jonathan Hayes found himself immersed in a dual existence for the next 7 days. Throughout the day, he engaged in his work, repaired the lights, and maintained the facade of normalcy. As twilight descended, he joined forces with Hannah Collins to construct their case, meticulously capturing images of documents, documenting conversations, and amassing proof of the financial deceit. The audio transmitter nestled within Nicole Hayes' purse revealed itself to be an indispensable asset. He listened as she voiced her grievances to David Lawson regarding Jonathan Hayes' ever-growing suspicious actions, overheard their conversation about the timeline for liquidating assets and their plans to depart from Cedarvale. Most devastating of all, he caught their laughter, mocking how effortlessly they had deceived him. He signed that power of attorney without even reading it. Nicole Hayes remarked during one particularly devastating conversation, "Simply placed their trust in me without reservation. It might have a touch of sweetness, were it not for the overwhelming sense of pity it evokes. has been so busy mending the troubles of others that he's lost sight of his own. David Lawson remarked, "Facilitates our work." Jonathan Hayes meticulously preserved each recording, every incriminating fragment that held the power to unravel their existence. Yet, he remained unprepared to make his move. He sought the ideal moment, the flawless setting for their public disgrace. The moment arrived when Nicole Hayes declared her intention to orchestrate a press conference for the grand unveiling of the Morrison waterfront project. The mayor was set to attend, accompanied by the city council and a number of distinguished business leaders. This would mark the pinnacle of her career, the culmination of months of relentless effort and dedication. "It's going to be amazing," she confided to Jonathan Hayes as they shared a meal. "At long last, we are poised to unveil to the world the true essence of urban development, an artful balance of preserving historic charm while forging pathways for contemporary economic growth." Jonathan Hayes offered a nod and a warm smile, embodying the role of the encouraging partner. "Your accomplishments fill me with pride. My sincere gratitude to you. It holds great significance." With a gentle motion, she extended her hand across the table, enveloping his in a warm squeeze. "Though my focus has wavered of late, the significance of this project resonates deeply within me. Once the week concludes, a shift will occur. I have no doubt they will." The press conference was set to take place on Friday afternoon at the construction site. On Thursday night, Jonathan Hayes meticulously crafted his own surprise for the event, collaborating with Hannah Collins to synchronize the timing of their strategic maneuver. "The divorce papers will be served at 10 a.m., Hannah Collins explained. "The asset freeze will take effect at 10:30. The inquiry into the fraud begins at 11. When she arrives at her press conference, the very fabric of her existence will be unraveling. What is the situation with David Lawson? He is served simultaneously. A civil court appearance is scheduled for Monday morning. A criminal referral is expected by the close of business on Friday. Neither of them will be in a state to engage with reporters regarding waterfront development." Jonathan Hayes experienced a chilling sense of satisfaction enveloping his heart. For months, Nicole Hayes and David Lawson had orchestrated his downfall, deftly maneuvering the pieces on the board while he remained blissfully unaware. Now it was his moment to orchestrate the dance while they floundered in the dark. On a Friday morning, as the first light of dawn began to creep into the room, Jonathan Hayes stirred from his slumber, taking great care to ensure that Nicole Hayes remained undisturbed in her peaceful rest. She lay in serene slumber, her features softened in a manner that eluded her in the light of day. In mere hours, that tranquility would be irrevocably disrupted. He donned his attire with a sense of calm and made his way to the Morrison construction site. The structure stood on the brink of completion, a shining embodiment of Nicole Hayes' dream for revitalizing the cityscape. In just a few hours, it would transform into the setting for her professional farewell. Jonathan Hayes found himself at the construction site for reasons that were entirely above board. The morning was set for the electrical inspection, and he was required to approve the safety systems prior to the building's occupancy. For weeks, He had anticipated this inspection, not due to the tasks at hand, but for the opportunities it would present. The primary electrical panel of the building resided in the basement, conveniently reachable from the street. Jonathan Hayes had meticulously orchestrated this moment ever since he uncovered the fraud, rehearsing the sequence of actions countless times in the theater of his mind. At precisely 9:47 a.m., Jonathan Hayes approached the main breaker panel and deftly flipped a solitary switch. The movement was delicate, almost undetectable, yet it would trigger a chain reaction, leading to a breakdown in the building's electrical infrastructure. Though not perilous, Jonathan Hayes had no intention of causing harm, yet his actions were sufficiently theatrical to prompt an urgent evacuation and thorough safety assessment. The press conference was set to commence at 1 p.m. At 12:45, the building would be teeming with fire marshals and safety inspectors. The event was set to be cancelled, leaving Nicole Hayes standing before the news cameras, empty-handed after months of dedicated effort. Having completed his inspection, Jonathan Hayes meticulously filed his report before making his way home. Nicole Hayes stood in the kitchen, clad in her finest suit, meticulously going over her presentation notes for one last time. "What do you think of my appearance?" she inquired, pivoting to meet his gaze. "Beautiful," Jonathan Hayes declared, his sincerity evident. In spite of all her actions, the deceit, the stealing, the treachery, Nicole Hayes remained the most exquisite woman he had ever encountered. "Today is your day to shine." Her smile blossomed, the first authentic expression of joy he had witnessed from her in what felt like an eternity. "I appreciate your understanding. I realize this period has been challenging with my heavy workload, but after today, we can shift our attention back to each other." Jonathan Hayes nodded, fully aware that today marked the end of what once was. With the ticking clock echoing in their minds, the impending arrival of sheriff's deputies loomed, bringing with them the weighty documents of divorce and the stark accusations of fraud. At 10 a.m., a message from Hannah Collins lit up his phone, breaking the morning's stillness. Documents presented. Both subjects are currently under the jurisdiction of the legal system. The asset freeze is currently in effect. Jonathan Hayes erased the message, returning his attention to the warmth of his coffee. Nicole Hayes was upstairs, likely receiving yet another message from Red regarding some last-minute detail for the press conference. Unbeknownst to either of them, their phones were on the brink of erupting with calls from lawyers and process servers. At 10:15, Nicole Hayes' phone began to ring. Jonathan Hayes listened intently from the bedroom, noting the swift transformation of her voice from cheerful to confused, and then to a state of panic, all within the span of 30 seconds. "Could you clarify what you mean by an asset freeze?" Her voice echoed softly down the staircase. "It seems there has been an error. I have yet to embark on any endeavors." The dialogue unfolded for several minutes, with Nicole Hayes' voice becoming progressively more frantic. Jonathan Hayes listened as she called out for David Lawson, her voice echoing with urgency in the silence. leaving voicemails that lingered in the air when he failed to respond. She descended the stairs, her complexion wan and her demeanor visibly rattled. "Jonathan Hayes, there seems to be a problem. The bank has informed us that our accounts are currently frozen due to an ongoing investigation. Yet, I find myself unable to connect with David Lawson. Perhaps it would be wise to consult a lawyer," Jonathan Hayes proposed. "I find myself perplexed by the unfolding events. The press conference looms just 3 hours away. And now this complication arises." The shrill sound of her phone pierced the silence once more. It was her assistant on the line, delivering the news that the Morrison building had been evacuated because of electrical issues, resulting in the cancellation of the press conference. Nicole Hayes settled into a kitchen chair, her gaze fixed on her phone, as though it held the answers to how her idyllic day had spiraled into chaos. "I must visit the site," she declared. "I must uncover the source of the issue. Do you truly believe that is a wise choice? Should any electrical issues arise, it falls under my purview. Jonathan Hayes." The weight of my duty. With a sense of mechanical precision, she seized her purse and keys, as if caught in the grip of shock. "I shall reach out to you later." Jonathan Hayes stood there, a silent observer, as she drove away, acutely aware that this moment marked the final departure of his wife from their home. When she finally came back, the divorce papers would be there, accompanied by a detailed ledger of her transgressions. On that particular afternoon, Jonathan Hayes lingered at Morrison's bar that afternoon, cradling a beer in his hands as he awaited Hannah Collins' call. The bar exuded a serene ambiance, with only a handful of familiar faces engrossed in the unfolding sports drama. The television remained unaware of the unfolding drama across town. At 3:30, Hannah Collins made the call. The task is complete. Nicole Hayes finds herself ensnared in the web of fraud charges, while Rhett faces the grim reality of custody, entangled in conspiracy and embezzlement. The district attorney has described it as one of the most audacious instances of municipal corruption witnessed in recent years. What unfolds next? Now, they must articulate before a judge the details of how they absconded with 83,000 from your retirement account and misappropriated city development funds to acquire a romantic hideaway. This promises to be a captivating dialogue. Jonathan Hayes experienced an unusual void within his chest. He had meticulously orchestrated this moment for weeks. Yet as it unfolded before him, he found himself devoid of satisfaction, stripped of any sense of triumph, only left with the empty pang of a life constructed on deceit. "How are you holding up?" Hannah Collins inquired. "I'm uncertain. I anticipated a sense of relief regarding this matter. Retribution rarely brings the fulfillment one anticipates. Yet, what of justice? Once the initial shock dissipates, the sensation of justice is undeniably satisfying." With the last sip of his beer lingering on his palate, Jonathan Hayes set off on his journey home, the night unfolding before him. The house now exuded a different aura, a certain stillness enveloping it. Nicole Hayes' presence consistently infused the atmosphere, her energy and ambition perpetually in flux. The absence of her presence left the room resonating with silence. Upon entering the kitchen, he stumbled upon the divorce papers laid out on the table, accompanied by a note from the sheriff's deputy who had delivered them. All was now formalized, sanctioned by law, and beyond the reach of change. Jonathan Hayes uncorked a fine bottle of wine, one they had been reserving for a moment of significance, and filled his glass with the rich, deep liquid. He settled into his living room, contemplating the path that lay ahead in the journey of his life. In the span of a fortnight, the narrative seized the headlines of local news, captivating the community for several days. The Cedarvale Tribune's headline read, "Local officials arrested in development fraud scheme," featuring images of Nicole Hayes and David Lawson being escorted away in handcuffs. The revelations proved to be far more detrimental than Jonathan Hayes had anticipated. The inquiry uncovered that Nicole Hayes and David Lawson had been siphoning funds from various development initiatives, leveraging their roles to direct contracts to firms they covertly controlled. The Harborview condo stood as merely one among a collection of properties acquired through illicit means. In the articles, Jonathan Hayes' name surfaced as the victim, yet the reporters exercised caution to safeguard his privacy. In Cedarvale, the majority remained unaware of the true depth of his role in dismantling the corruption scheme. Nicole Hayes was granted bail after 3 days, yet she chose not to return home. Her attorney had counseled her to maintain distance from Jonathan Hayes as the criminal and civil proceedings unfolded. She found herself residing in a motel on the outskirts of town, her career in tatters, her reputation shattered beyond repair. David Lawson's situation deteriorated even further. In a swift and decisive action, the mayor's office terminated his employment, while the state Democratic Party promptly rescinded its endorsement for the city council race he had been preparing to enter. His visage graced the front page of every newspaper in the county, marked as the mastermind behind the fraudulent scheme. Jonathan Hayes ought to have experienced a sense of vindication. Instead, a profound emptiness enveloped him. The silence of the house enveloped me, each routine echoing with a sense of unsettling familiarity. In his fervent quest for vengeance, he had poured every ounce of his energy into meticulous planning, leaving little room for contemplation of what lay beyond the act itself. It was a Thursday evening, and he found himself seated in the kitchen when a knock echoed through the air, signaling an unexpected visitor at the door. Jonathan Hayes swung the door open to reveal David Lawson on his porch, a picture of weariness and urgency. "We need to talk," David Lawson said. Jonathan Hayes gracefully moved aside, granting him entry. David Lawson surveyed the living room with fresh eyes, absorbing the wedding photos and vacation mementos that chronicled a decade and a half of companionship and matrimony. "I understand your anger," David Lawson began. Furious, Jonathan Hayes let out a hearty laugh. "David Lawson, you took my retirement savings and betrayed me with my wife. Furious barely scratches the surface. It was never my intention for things to unfold in such a manner." "Which section? Is it the act of theft or the deceit that troubles us?" David Lawson sank into the couch with a weighty sigh. "Both." "Not either." Uncertain, Jonathan Hayes What began as a professional alliance unfolded through the intricacies of the Morrison project. Then it transformed into something entirely different. When will it be? What is this? At what point did it transform into something entirely different? At what moment did you choose to forsake a bond that has endured for 15 years? David Lawson remained silent for an extended pause. Do you recall that evening from last year when Sarah walked away from me? In a haze of intoxication and frustration, I reached out to you, and you arrived, offering your ear as I vented my grievances for what felt like an eternity. Jonathan Hayes recalled. David Lawson received the heart-wrenching news of his girlfriend's decision to end their relationship through a simple text message, leaving him utterly shattered. Jonathan Hayes had devoted the entire night to absorbing his friend's outpouring of frustrations regarding failed relationships and lost chances. You told me I had to cease my longing for perfection and begin to battle for what I desired. David Lawson went on. You mentioned that life is far too fleeting to squander on regrets. I was discussing the nuances of dating, not the dissolution of marriages. I am aware. Yet, as I sat down with Nicole Hayes to discuss the Morrison project, I couldn't help but notice the deep unhappiness etched on her face, the palpable sense of entrapment that surrounded her. Confined. Jonathan Hayes, voice ascended. She found herself ensnared in a marriage that offered love, unwavering support, and all the resources she required to forge her career. She expressed that you failed to grasp her aspirations, that you were satisfied with remaining modest while she yearned to create something grander. So you aided her in constructing it by appropriating my funds. The concept of the money originated from her mind. She claimed you wouldn't even notice its absence, suggesting that your aspirations were too modest to pursue anything meaningful with it in the first place. Jonathan Hayes gazed intently at his once-beloved companion, the man to whom he had confided his most profound anxieties and loftiest dreams. Leave now. Jonathan Hayes, if you would be so kind. Please leave my home. Leave my life. Should you ever return to this place, I will not hesitate to contact the authorities. David Lawson rose gradually, his complexion ashen. I apologize. I understand that it holds no significance at this moment. Regrettably, I must express my apologies. You express regret for being discovered. A distinction exists. David Lawson approached the door, pausing momentarily to glance back. In the grand scheme of things, it seems she never truly loved me. Not quite. She was enamored with the possibilities I could bring to her professional journey. Yet, she never held love for me. Is that really meant to bring me comfort? It aims to reveal that you were not alone in being deceived. Nicole Hayes manipulated both of us to achieve her desires. Jonathan Hayes forcefully shut the door, his breath coming in quick bursts as he paused in the hallway. Even now, after all that had transpired, David Lawson was still attempting to cast himself as the victim, seeking some semblance of common ground between them. Yet, a shared understanding remained elusive. Forgiveness was a distant notion, utterly absent. Only the empty thrill remained as he observed his foes unraveling in their own chaos. As the month passed, the trials unfolded with a ferocity that was both swift and merciless. Nicole Hayes admitted her guilt in the matters of fraud and embezzlement, securing a lighter sentence of 2 years in a minimum security prison, alongside a commitment to fully repay the misappropriated funds. David Lawson received a 5-year sentence for conspiracy and racketeering, his political aspirations extinguished before they had the chance to truly take flight. Jonathan Hayes received a full refund, along with compensation for damages and the costs of legal representation. The house belonged to him, the debt settled, his retirement account rejuvenated. He had triumphed utterly, with unwavering certainty, leaving no room for concession. Yet, the taste of victory was oddly devoid of substance. The silence of the house enveloped him, while his daily rituals unfolded with an unsettling predictability. He had poured so much of his vitality into the pursuit of vengeance that he had lost sight of what it meant to truly live for himself. Amidst the gentle patter of rain on a Tuesday morning, Jonathan Hayes navigated his way to the Morrison waterfront construction site. The structure loomed, completed yet devoid of life, a testament to both aspiration and deceit. The city, in the wake of the scandal, had abandoned the development project, leaving the structure to stand neglected and forsaken. Jonathan Hayes eased his vehicle to a stop across the street, his gaze fixed intently on the building before him. He had to concede. It was indeed beautiful. Nicole Hayes had crafted a vision, an idea that held the potential to revolutionize the waterfront district. Her vision was nothing short of magnificent and uplifting, despite the fact that her methods strayed into the realm of the illicit. A sign proclaiming for sale dangled in the window. The price being requested was merely a small portion of the original construction cost of the building. Jonathan Hayes retrieved his phone and dialed the listing agent. He expressed his interest in the Morrison building, what would be required to acquire it. 3 months later, Jonathan Hayes found himself in the dimly lit basement of the Morrison building, meticulously installing the final electrical panel. Months had slipped by in the renovation, yet he had immersed himself in the labor, meticulously unraveling the intricacies of each wire and junction box. The structure was set to become the new headquarters for Greaves Electrical Solutions, a firm dedicated to urban infrastructure consulting. He had secured 3 city contracts, leveraging his reputation and expertise to create something uniquely his own. He couldn't help but notice the irony. He thrived within the framework of Nicole Hayes' creation, leveraging the space she had envisioned for her aspirations to propel his own burgeoning career. Justice possessed a whimsical charm. His phone vibrated, signaling a message from Hannah Collins. "Is the grand opening party still scheduled for Friday?" Jonathan Hayes responded with a certainty that left no room for doubt. He wouldn't miss it. He had extended invitations to 50 individuals for the grand opening: friends, colleagues, city officials, business leaders, those who were familiar with his journey, who grasped the significance of the building, not merely his achievements in the professional realm, but the revival of his personal life. With a final twist of his wrist, Jonathan Hayes secured the last wire in place, then stepped back to test the electrical system. anticipation buzzing in the air. Every light in the building sprang to life, casting a warm glow that danced through the vacant rooms. The city buzzed with life, teeming with challenges awaiting resolution, and a framework in dire need of upkeep. For 12 long years, he toiled in the shadows, mending the intricate systems of others while his own existence crumbled in the light above. At that moment, he was crafting a creation that was uniquely his own, a manifestation of his vision. Jonathan Hayes ascended the staircase to the main floor, gazing out the windows at the serene waterfront of Cedarvale. The vista was breathtaking, a scene so striking that it compelled onlookers to pause and absorb its beauty. Nicole Hayes had made a wise choice, though she had forfeited the pleasure of savoring it. The shrill sound of his phone pierced the silence. A number he didn't recognize appeared on the caller ID. Greaves Electrical Solutions. Good day, Mr. Greaves. Greetings. This is Jennifer Walsh, representing the Portland Development Authority. It has come to our attention that your expertise lies in the realm of urban infrastructure consulting. Indeed, that is accurate. There is a waterfront project that could pique your interest. Would you be open to a site visit next week? Jonathan Hayes beamed, gazing at the shimmering lights of Cedarvale that danced in the night. I shall be present. He ended the call and strolled through his new building once again, scrutinizing every room, every system, every detail that would underpin his future triumph. All was precisely as it ought to be. The lights came to life with a flicker. The city remained oblivious. Yet, one man witnessed everything.